And now for something completely different! Hello,
Hi.
book people! We've been tagged again by Joseph over at the Booktubinator to do Padfoot and Prongs 07 Raylene, is her name, the Playing With Your Emotions book tag, and so that's what we're here to do, right?
Yes. We have 10 books to talk about.
A piece, so
which
that's
means
actually
you get
20.
Ooh, yay. Okay, let's sit like normal people now.
Okay.
We will launch into our 10 books. The first one is, which book makes you feel happy? So I chose Bubbles Unbound by Sarah Strohmeyer, I believe is how you say her last name. This is kind of like the Stephanie Plum books, except way better because I have read some of those. This is about Bubbles Yablonsky. She lives in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, and she basically has to solve crimes and whatnot, but she is like a super girly girl, and she does like the badass fun way of solving crimes.
She has no experience in being a detective.
No. Leslie's read them too,
Yeah.
but they're just really, really fun books, and it's part of a series, but this is the first one, and it's hilarious and awesome.
In front of me, you have the Invisible Collection of The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot, and those are some of the most entertaining diaries of anyone who could ever be fictional. Just, they're darling, and I reread them all the time. They're fantastic and entirely quotable.
I concur. Number 2 is what book makes you feel sad? And if you know me, you know my answer already, and that would be The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, because it's the only one that I've ever cried reading.
I chose The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Don't look at me like that!
Explain to me, why did you choose that one?
It was really upsetting. It was a really good book, but it was dystopian, and I just felt bad for Offred? I don't remember quite how we decided to say her name, but I just felt bad for her the whole time. It was a really sad existence, and with little attempt to ever escape it, and it was just really upsetting and sad.
Number 3 is what book makes you feel angry? That book for me would be Walden by Henry David Thoreau, I believe, wrote that one. It's stupid, and let me tell you why. He's like, I'm gonna go be hoity-toity and live in a cabin away from society so I can find myself and whatnot. But then he goes to the market like every day and talks to people.
From town.
He was a mile from town. I live a mile from town. I live further than a mile from town. Okay, depending on where you consider the center of the city at, I live way more than a mile from the center of the city. And I don't brag about how I'm getting to become one with nature and whatnot. No, Walden makes me angry.
Really? I couldn't tell.
Anyway, now that I'm all flustered.
I don't want to talk about it.
Number 4. What's a book that makes you feel nostalgic? This is one of the best books that I read when I was a kid, and it's The Great Good Thing by Roderick Townley.
It's a great name.
It is about a character from a novel. Her name is Sylvie, and she's a 12-year-old princess, and she's like a character in a storybook, and she's existed for 80 years in this book, and then things start to happen, and she has to sort of explore the outer pages of her story because it's the same thing continually over and over again, and then she realizes that she's like in a story and whatnot. It's all meta, man.
This is Centerburg Tales by Robert McCloskey, also the author of Blueberries for Sal and Make Way for Ducklings and Lentil. But this is a really great collection of stories about Homer Price, who lives in Centerburg, which is a nice little fictional town, I think, out in the Midwest, and it's cute and adorable, and I read it all the time, still, because it makes me feel obviously nostalgic. And my dad used to do all of the voices when he would read this to me as a child.
Number 5. What book makes you feel scared? Now, when I read a book, I don't necessarily get scared in the sense of, like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, but more in the sense of it kind of just creeps you out in, like, the core of your body. And that, for me, is Over the Edge, Death in the Grand Canyon by Michael P. Gilliglieri and Thomas Myers. This is a nonfiction account of all of the deaths that have occurred in the Grand Canyon since people started exploring it, and it's kind of creepy to read, especially when you have just been to the Grand Canyon like I had, or if you're going to the Grand Canyon, because there are parts where there are no walls and people can just fall over, and I was very nervous for the children running around. But anyway, this has people falling over the edge, and it's just sort of weird to think that that can happen in a national park, and it does happen a lot, actually. People are stupid and hurt themselves.
I don't actually own this book, and this is probably one of the reasons why Twilight scared me when I read it. What was going on here? It was just creepy. It was the first foray into vampires for me in literature, and I think ruined it for me, which is why I don't read any more books about vampires, and it was just scary. I didn't like it when I first read it, and I think I actually had to read it again to really appreciate as much as you can in books. But yeah, this was scary the first time.
Number 6 is which book makes you feel surprised? And for me, that is The Double Bind by Chris Bojalian. He wrote a story about a girl who gets attacked. She's like riding a bike at night, she gets attacked, and then her like entire world changes, and she meets people, and there's things with photos and creepiness, and you think that the story is going to go in one direction, and then at the end it's like bam, and it just blew my mind. I was so surprised with the cliffhanger. This is a fantastic cliffhanger. So The Double Bind surprised me a lot.
An Abundance of Catherines by John Green surprised me in that I was expecting it to be better. I expected to like it more, and I wasn't super thrilled. And I was a little taken aback by it. It wasn't at the level that I was expecting it to be at. I mean, maybe it was the third John Green book I read. I sort of read them a little bit out of order. But I don't know. I was obviously very surprised.
We just expect so much.
Yeah.
Number 7. Which book makes you feel disappointed? That would be 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. A lot of people were so excited about this book, and that was what made me buy it. And then I read it, and I was just kind of like, oh, everything about it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And you can hear why, because I have a review about it posted. Go find it. Yeah, that's right.
Jesse the Reader mentioned in his emotion tag video that you can be disappointed by a book but still really, really like it. And I agree with that, because I was disappointed by Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. We got to the end. What I was really hoping to happen throughout the whole book didn't happen, and then I read Louisa May Alcott's little description on why she didn't do it, and she was very forceful about why she wasn't going to write that piece in, and I was just disappointed that she didn't, because that's not how I wanted the story to end. But this is still one of my favorite books. I really love Little Women. It was a great story.
Number 8. Which book makes you feel distressed? Oh. Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins makes me feel distressed. Because there was so many things going on in here, and so many people died. It was a bloodbath, and I was just worried for everyone, and I wanted the story to end well, and it was just crazy. I mean, I still loved it. It was still an awesome book. It was just, it made me feel very, very distressed.
The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly gets sort of gruesome and frightening toward the end. Mostly, a little bit in the middle, but more toward the end, and I was just so anxious about how everything was going to work out, and if it was going to be okay, and it was just really stressful to read this book. After you got past the beginning, which was sort of, you know, fairy tale-ish and a little bit lighter, the ending was just really stressful and obviously very distressing, and I can't talk about it without getting worked up.
Number 9 is which book makes you feel confused? And anybody who has attempted to read this book will probably feel the same way, but that is The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. He wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and this is a precursor to both The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And whereas The Hobbit is very readable, The Lord of the Rings is pretty readable, this thing is impossible to read. It's about the formation of Earth and his Earth, his version of Earth, and about elves and how they came to be and different gods and people with crazy names and whatnot, and it's just so dull. I mean, I read it when I was in like 8th grade, so I was definitely a little young to be really absorbing the information, but I feel like even if I tried to read it now, I would just be very confused and bored.
If you haven't discovered by watching our last video, The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, probably one of the most confusing books I've ever read. I understood it, but I didn't. It just gets to me.
It confused you.
So confusing. If you just explained the setting everything would have been fine. No!
Number 10 was not in the original tag, but the booktubeinator, he added a number 10 to that. 10. Ooh, 10. Okay, that was 15, but whatever. He added grateful. So we're, since we were tagged by him, we're going to do that one as well, and I'm gonna get all sentimental on you guys.
We like round numbers too.
How long have we known each other? Is that a round number?
3rd grade.
Okay,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2.
We've known each other for 12 years! So grateful would be Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's / Philosopher's Stone, because I am grateful this series exists because it created much of my childhood. This is the book that launched 1,000 ships. Was it Helen of Troy or Helen of Troy whose face launched 1,000 ships? Well, this book launched 1,000 ships in modern times. And ships, I mean romance. It's some Harry, Ginny action up in here. Maybe some Ron and Hermione. I am grateful for you.
I almost chose Harry Potter as well, but in the end I wound up choosing Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I read this in my last year of high school, and it's just a really interesting story, and I appreciated a lot of the human condition stuff that came from some of the characters. If you take the time to think about them and not just get annoyed with them because you hate reading the book in the summertime, like a lot of people that I knew that read this. And it was a great story, like I said, and I really want to reread it because I'm so grateful that it exists.
Shiny pages. Shiny pages.
One more thing, we're not going to specifically tag anybody, but should you enjoy this tag a lot, feel free to do it yourself and post it as a video response to Raylene over at Padfoot and Prongs 07, or I guess to us if you want, but she really created it, so go to her.
Yeah, you should go to her.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Links to anything that you could think of that you might want that we may have mentioned down below,
including people.
Yep. First videos, tag, etc. Have lovely weeks. We'll miss you.
Bye.